Hi, and welcome back to the channel. We are continuing Attack on Titan. This is Season 3, Episode 3. And last time around, or I should say like the beginning of Season 3, the first two episodes, it's been a little bit different getting into this one. Mainly because of like the shifting the focus a little bit, and it's becoming very human-centric. And we're getting a lot of information thrown at us that we're just desperately trying to process all the time. But the last one at least ended with some big revelations, I should say, with Lord Reis, who is the father of Historia and like the actual royalty, the actual royal family, which makes Historia the heir. And they managed to kidnap both her and Eren. So what's gonna become of that? Also something about eating Eren, which is sounds really fucking awful. We also got this Kenny guy also thrown into the mix, who's a part of Levi's past, and he said something about Levi's last name, Ackerman, which is the same last name as Mikasa. So we're thinking they related in some way, same father, or yeah, perhaps. There's a lot going on as per usual. And in real time, it's been a little while since we watched any new episodes, so I'm actually just quite anxious about getting back into it. So if you're ready?
Yes.
Yes, all right, let's do it. And you can, of course, always check out our full-length reactions where you can sync up the footage with your own copy of the episode. We also have early reactions for Attack on Titan, where we are several episodes ahead compared to here on YouTube. It's all over on Patreon, and the link is down in the description below. Well, let's go. Old story.
私はウォールローゼ北部の小さな牧場で生まれました。貴族家レイス教の領地内にある牧場です。
Okay. So really going back and seeing her early years.
夜になると誰かが馬車で迎えに来て派手に着飾った母を乗せて町に行きました。しかし字の読み書きを覚え、母の真似事で本を読み出した時、どの本にも親は子供に関心を示し、話しかけたり抱いたり叱ったりするものとして書かれていたのです。私にはそのどれも経験のないことでした。ある日私は好奇心から母に抱きついてみることにしました。お母さん
Wow.
こいつを殺す勇気が私にあれば。
Oh, that's sad as
それ
fuck.
が母が私に発した最初の言葉。そして5年前のあの日、ウォールマリアが陥落して数日経った夜、私は初めて父と会いました。その男性はこの土地を治める領主の名前を名乗り、
ヒストリア、これから私と暮らすぞ。
Well, something else clearly happened.
困りますな、レイス教。このような真似はご容赦いただきたい。ウォールマリアが破られたことで不安に襲われましたか？
Yeah, isn't it?
この女もその子もあなたとは関係がないと。
仕方ない。この二人は私と何の関係もない。
何を
Obviously
お
had
前
to
は
do
存
that.
在しなかった。
旦那様、話が違うではありませんか。お前さん産まなければ。
Whoa.
私も殺されそうになる直前で、父はある提案をしました。ここよりずっと遠くの地でつつましく生きるのであれば、見逃してやってはどうかと。
君の名はクリスタ・レンズだ。
Woof. Okay. Now we know a little bit more.
お前こそ王家の血を引く者だからだ。そしてお前こそが人類を救うことのできる唯一の存在なんだよ。
Okay.
さあ、行こう、ヒストリア。すべてが始まった場所へ。ソルス、こいつらに喋っちゃいねえよな。俺たちの王への忠誠心は。信じていたのに。
サニス、彼は何も話していない。ラルフはナイフで脅され、
私の作った作文を声に出して
Okay, yeah.
読んだ。
We tricked you. This guy did nothing.
おお、裏切ったのかよ。
Yeah, you did.
役を降りても誰かがすぐに代わりを演じ始める。
Stop
どう
the
り
act.
でこの絵からなくならねえわけだ。頑張れよ、判事。
Well, that was cryptic.
Yep.
Hi.
悪いね。散らかしちゃって。ゴキブリがいたんだよ。
Sure.
エレンが食われる。
ああ。エレンが思い出した会話の内容はこうだ。
私を恨んでいるか。
どうだろう。君も人なんか食べたくなかっただろうし。
ベルトルトやライナー、兄の仲間を食べたんだと思う。それは巨人化の能力を有した人間だろう。巨人がその能力を持つ人間を食べると
that's why she
人間に
reverted
戻る
back.
さらに相手の能力を手に入れるんだ。巨人を操れるというエレンの叫びの力を。
That's why. Okay, they want Aaron's power.
もし王政が巨人を持っていれば、エレンはそいつに食われるだろう。
You can't.
落ち着
No,
け。
yeah, calm
お
down.
前が取り乱したところで奴らがエレンを返してくれるわけじゃね
私はエルヴィンにレース家の情報を伝えてくるよ。結果を待ってるはずだからね。レース教の領地で落ち合おう。連絡は例の場所だ。
But didn't Aaron get arrested?
手紙は読ませてもらった。わしなりの考えも持ってきた。その上で聞くが、本当にやるのか。
はい。我々はウォールマリア奪還のため、王政を打倒します。
Okay,
A coup. Yeah.
that is a big thing. Does warrant the question. Are you serious?
もし私の推測が正しければ、今回の計画において武力を行使するつもりはありません。人を殺すこともあってはなりません。
おお、お聞かせ願おうか。そのような方法があり得るのか。
What kind of plan is that?
もしその根拠が違っていれば、我々は皆首をくくることになるでしょう。
ああ、なんじゃ。
That's all.
要はまたすべて賭け事なのか。
It's what he does.
私の父は教員でした。
Interesting.
なんだろう。
分隊長、今は。
あ、わかってるよ。
That was what?
That was who?
エルヴィン。
やはりそうだったか。レース家が本当の王家です。現在リヴァイたちがエレンとヒストリアの救出に動いています。二人を奪還し、ヒストリアレースを女王
I
に
thought
即
that
位
was
さ
the
せます。
plan. Yeah.
血を流すことなく王政の打倒が叶います。民衆の前でこれまでの体制は嘘であるという宣言と
He tells me that's not exactly what's going to happen.
それで、レース家の調査は
その中に一つ興味深い事件が見つかった。
エルヴィン団長、中央憲兵が団長に出頭を命じてます。組織殺人の容疑だと騒いでます。それも町のど真ん中で。
Oh, that's what's happening.
俺は調査兵団の表の顔を通す。お前は自分の判断に従って動け。何より次の調査兵団団長はハンジーゾエ。お前だ。
Oh shit! Congratulations.
Yeah.
それは王政からのエレン引き渡し命令を回避するため、調査兵団がリーブス商会を使って企てた狂言だった。その行為は人類憲章第6条に抵触する。
個々の利益を優先し、人類の存続を脅かした罪だろう。
ではここに同法への重大な違反を認め、全調査兵の身柄
All
を拘束す
scouts.
る。
Fuck.
And he saw what happened.
Yeah, the
So,
son.
yeah.
Yeah. So he knows.
Yeah.
We got an eyewitness.
Yeah.
町に踏みとどまり、あらゆる手を尽くして行く当てのない人々を支援し、復興を目指したこの無念。私が必ず。
Okay. See if they believe you or not.
人類は巨人から身を守るため壁の中に逃げ込み、100年の平和を実現させた。その際、それまでの歴史を記すようなものは何一つ残すことができなかった。しかし私はあることを疑問に思い、父に質問しました。
I love that we're getting into his past now.
王政の配布する歴史書には数多くの謎と矛盾が存在すると。私が町の子供たちに父の話をして、その詳細を憲兵に尋ねられた日、父は家には帰って、
Wow.
Yeah. I knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
今から107年前、 この壁に逃げ込んだ人類は王によって統治しやすいように記憶を改ざんされた。
Also the memories.
Through history.
彼らが守りたいのは人類ではなく、彼らの庭付きの家と地位だけ。むしろ自分たちの権利が脅かされるのならば、その相手が誰だろうと排除する。父は人の持つ欲と愚かな息子によって殺されたのです。
That's how it all started for him.
私の人生の使命は父の仮説を証明することとなったのです。
調査兵団が民間人を殺した。一部の団員は逮捕を逃れ、未だ逃亡中だ。
Yeah, now they're doing the whole propaganda thing.
Yeah.
兵長、買い出し行ってきました。
町で憲兵がこんなものを。これが事実なら調査兵団は解散状態です。午後には山狩りが行われるというし、加えて主要な街道には検問が張られ、通行証がないと通り抜けは不可能です。
Oh, me, things are getting complicated. Bless you.
兵長、足音です。こっちに向かってきます。
She's good.
Mm-hmm. Whoa!
Annoying!
That wasn't 20 fucking minutes. It's so freaking intriguing what's going on. I don't know if I can like keep track of all of it at all, because there's so many story threads and so many revelations and going back and forth in time. Whew, yeah. Well, let's see if we can talk about it a little bit at least. So, that was episode 3. Where do you want to start with this one?
From the start, maybe?
Yeah, well, the first thing we saw in this episode was when Historia told the rest of the squad about her past and how she grew up, which was difficult to watch, to say the least. And they didn't explain it outright, but at least the way I understood it was that, just to make it clear, her mother was a mistress to Lord Reiss, and she resented Historia because of the fact that she had this child, the fact that she had Historia made it so that she had to be hidden away and she couldn't live her normal life. And you know, it was not just the whole mistress thing, but it was mostly because of the fact that, yeah, she had a child.
Yeah, and she was not allowed to have that child, and she knew that, and that was a risk for her.
Mm.
So, and we also saw that was in the end what got her was that she was his mistress and actually got a child with him.
Mm.
And I think why she was keeping distance to Historia, because she blamed her for basically everything, and it's such a horrible thing, right? When kids grow up with absentee parents
just resenting their child for being born.
Yeah, exactly. And definitely also puts it a bit more into perspective, the whole thing with like Emilia and Historia had this whole thing where they talked about not wanting to live because they were not wanted.
She literally wasn't wanted by her own mother.
Yeah.
And the last thing her mom even said to her before she died was, "I wish I
never had you."
I never had you.
Yeah.
It's, you know, in a sense, you know, understandable human fucking emotions, and why. Yeah, it is. Of course, it wasn't Historia's fault. It wasn't like her mom's fault either. It's the whole fucking system, the way that it's built up, that's at fault. And even someone as powerful as Lord Reiss at that point couldn't do anything about it. Like, he actually wanted to get that family back together. Like, he wanted to take them with him. But the mom got killed by these special agents, which Kenny was a part of back then, and related to the military police, I'm sure. So that's where that connection comes in. And on that note, I am a little bit curious or confused maybe about who Kenny is actually working for now in the present as well. If it is Lord Rice at all, or if it's like the fake royals who we've also seen, but I'm sure they're gonna clear that up
of course,
later on. But at least back then, Lord Ice, he wasn't powerful enough to do anything, and he knew that, okay, I have to disown them once again. But at least he came up with some sort of plan, so Historia didn't have to die, and just they could give her a fake name, and she could go and be this other person, which is the part of her story that we already knew about. So that was interesting, going back there. And then we didn't get a lot from them in present time with Historia and her father and Eren, who's just confined to a bed and then a cell for this entire episode. And he is pretty much just a pawn at the moment.
Yeah, we also learned why they're interested in actually
eating him.
Eating him, yeah, because then they will take over his power.
Yes, and that's also something we got from those information screens at the middle of the episode is and they also explained it outright. When you eat a Titan with powers, you get those powers, and that's also, or they figured it out through something that Eren remembered about Bertolt and Ymir when they talked back in episode 9, I think it was, of season 2. With what happened when she ate one of their comrades, and because he had Titan powers, or those specific Titan powers, she got them as well, and that's how she became a human again after 60 years. And
that's also what you asked at some point. You asked, how can she change back?
Yes,
and that was because she ate another human.
I'm glad they explained it, but
powers.
Of course they explain everything at certain points in this series. Nothing is just random or by coincidence. It certainly seems like. So definitely some more information there about stuff in the past and how it fits together, and the whole why with Eren. Why do they want to eat Eren? So they must have someone inside of the government, inside of the royals there, who's also a Titan. Is what they're at least surmising.
Yeah, because I heavily doubt they're working together with Rainer and Annie and Bertolt, and
that's a completely separate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think they would probably want Eren for the same reasons, because they did talk about how they just wanted, basically, they wanted the power.
Yes.
But they did not want, necessarily, they didn't care that much about Eren.
They didn't want him to have that power. That's what Rainer said. He was mad that Eren...
Of all people, why did it have to be him who got that power?
Yes. It could also... You could also maybe look at what he said back then as a... Not that he straight up hates Eren, but as a... Why did it have to be Eren? Why do I or someone else... Why does he have that power? So now he needs to be eaten. I don't want him to be eaten.
Yeah.
It could also be like that. Yeah. So there's still some sort of connection there.
Or just that he's so fucking stubborn, And he's like, he keeps on fighting back. Why did it have to be him? Because he's always fighting back. And it's going to be so hard for us because...
Yeah, if it had been anyone else, they might have given up at this point. But Eren is too goddamn stubborn to give up.
It could be a lot of reasons.
Sure. But now we know that, at least. And that's why people want Eren, is so that they can eat him.
Want to eat him,
and get his power. Which whoever has that power, it is such a impressive power if you can control Titans by your voice, by screaming and so it makes perfectly sense why all the factions, whoever is, it makes sense why they want him. So we get that now. That's really nice. We are getting a lot of information at the beginning of this season, and they're really trying and doing their absolute best. The people that we care about, at least the scouts and Erwin, coming up with this plan to overthrow and succeed without bloodshed, which I think that's a good way to go about it, but it's gonna make it really, really difficult for them, because everything is also going against them at the moment, because the royals, and they still have the power, they still have the military police, and they can use their propaganda to turn the people against them as well, like no matter what they say or do. So
yeah, and they plotted a lot because they just set up this whole thing with Erwin, where they wanted to frame him, all these famous scouts, for the murder of Reeves that we saw in the last episode.
Yeah, that's like the thing Kenny did before he said the Ackerman line. Yeah,
and yeah, of course that's gonna be used against the scouts, and also to turn the people against the scouts. But then we had the whole thing with Erwin and him talking about his past.
Yes, that was really cool. I was afraid that it was just he told Pixis, I'm gonna tell you about my past, and then they kind of skipped it and something else happened. I was like, I really wanted to see that, but then they actually went back and we got to hear that story and where it all began for him. And he's always been an inquisitive little fucker.
It even makes, somehow it kind of makes sense that he was son of someone who was like, well, he was a teacher, but you know, someone who was working with history and
an intellectual. Wow, that was very difficult for me to get that word out. An intellectual. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, and even back then he raised all the right questions, and he could see all the contradictories in the history.
Yeah,
and that ended up being his father's demise, because, well, you can't really talk about this shit because the people in power, they will just
silence you.
We've seen plenty of people being silenced before in this universe. Like we heard about the miner, or what he was like.
Yeah, that long
guy who
story.
Yeah. And his, like, he talked to someone about it and he also disappeared, and the people he talked to about it also disappeared, and we've seen how they just back, it's even 60 years ago, right, that people were stabbed in the back with that injection, being turned into titans, thrown over the walls. And like, yeah, so we also know more or less what happens when people disappear. If they just don't straight out die. And for Erwin's father's case, he died in an accident, unfortunately. But he did say some great stuff, and I think that's also something we have to remember in our world, is the way that history is not necessarily always true. For example, there's this, I think it's a quote, that history is written by the victors, right?
Yes,
so
history is written by the victors. Yes, yeah. It's very popular.
So people who won a war, for example, they will write the history books. So there's a lot of things that will not be.
They might omit a lot of things that will make them look less than what they want to, whatever they want to look like, whatever they want the story to be. And if you are on top and you can make the stories up yourself, and you can make it look like you are infallible or whatever is going on, and you can control people like that.
And it's like and I know some people will probably try and dispute me, but you can't. Nothing in this life is objective completely. There's always like a point of view, or always some sort of like perspective that is either hidden or just straight out, like right there in front of you. Even in science, and that's like a huge part of science, is actually called I think the philosophy of science, or like the theory of science, is the way that, well, it's not completely objective, and it will never be, because there's always some sort of agenda, or always some sort of like thing that drives. For example, it's humans who are doing the analysis, like, 'cause we just get like basically just like black dots on paper, and then it's up to the scientists to actually connect the dots. So like the data points, we have to make connect the dots and kind of make out what the dots mean. And because we're humans, and because we are fallible, we will, like, it's not going to be completely objective.
No, we will always bring ourselves into it somehow, and anything that has to do with us humans can never be truly 100% objective, as you're saying, even if it's science, humans doing science. So there you go. History, human, like we write our own fucking history books. No one else is doing that for us. So there will always be that human element involved there. And therefore it will always be somewhat subjective, because we can't help but, like, because we all have, you talked about perspectives, like it's not necessarily something we do on purpose either. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with history, right? Because you could ask, like, there's something like, I think a lot of police work, right? So you have this situation that unfolds, and then you have all these witnesses, and then you ask the witness about their experience, and you might get lots of different stories, and that could be everything from like, it looked like this from this angle, and then maybe they're trying to read into the situation. For example, if they get snippets of a conversation and they can't really make it out, so they're just trying to connect the dots between it, and the way that we read each other's like body language and everything, so
might be different.
It might be very different from the witnesses, and we all have different backgrounds, and we all have different perspectives, and even something that you think is like completely crystally clear from like the sequence of events, there will always be
a different perspective,
or another side, or another facet,
exactly. And then we got the people who are knowingly changing up facts because they do have some sort of agenda. So it's like, yeah,
that's
you never really know.
Yeah, that's like a misinformation, or like fake news, as it was it was so neatly coined by a former president. So it's like, yeah, so there's also a lot of that.
So that's basically just what we're saying, and it shines through in this story very much, and that's also part of, and I think it's done on purpose, that when, for us, the audience, us sitting here, it can be very difficult to put the pieces together and make it all make sense, because we're getting stories and points of view from different characters who has different agendas, and they're all human, and it makes it quite confusing. But that's also realistic, like real history and real events told by different people, like that can be really fucking confusing in our world, or in real life as well. So it makes perfect sense that it is the way that it is. But we are at least getting more and more and more about how it all fits together, and I like that, because yeah, we could probably have surmised this as well, but I like that they told us outright through Erwin's story with his father, that yeah, they have had peace for about 100 years and been inside of these walls, but this is what also then happened, and we don't have anything, like we don't know what happened before we got here. Everything that we know is written in these history books that are just given to us by the government. So it's just, yeah, it's there. I'm sure there are, or I don't know if there are, but there could be a lot of conspiracy theorists in this world as well, and it would be probably a lot more warranted than many of the conspiracy theories that are roaming around in our world, because, or yeah, let's not get into all that.
No.
That's then we'll go down a rabbit hole, and we don't want to do that. But at least pertaining to this story, it's makes sense.
And I think one very important notice as well was the reason why these people were kind of like altering the history. Because apparently Erwin's father knew a lot more than was in the history books. I don't know from where. So that's kind of like, that's just like a curious little thing.
Or at least he had his theories.
At least he had theories, yeah. But nevertheless, the reason why all of these people is because they're in power and they have the authority. And they don't want people to question the authority.
They don't want to give up that power.
No. So as soon as you start to raise questions, or anything really that goes against their authority, you're getting snuffed.
Yes, and that's what makes it pretty damn ironic, the way that they arrested Erwin and saying by this and this decree or whatever's in the law says that when you do something that is, you say that it's for humanity, humanity's gain here, but you're in reality doing it for your own sake or for personal gains, selfish gains, then yeah, because of that we can arrest you now. But that is what they are doing, the fucking royals, the people in power, because they are not doing what they're doing to help humanity overall. They're doing it for themselves, to stay in power, so for selfish reasons. So they should be the one who got arrested, but alas, no.
And remember how I did kind of talk about classicism as being like one of the things that I felt a theme of classicism.
Yeah, very early on you said that. That's really what we're getting into now.
So there's a bit of classicism that's sprinkled with a bit of fascism as well. Great stuff.
Great stuff, yeah. And now we're really, really getting into it. And I find it so interesting and so intriguing with what we're getting here in this season so far. And still, most likely just scratching the fucking surface. Because there's so much still to be told. And I also, even though like we're getting a lot of new stuff here, I do also want to return to and see what is going on with Rainer and Berthold, Ymir, where they are, their old faction, when they're gonna come into play again, plus the fucking monkey. So
yeah, there's still so much.
We got a lot to go, a lot of ground to cover still, before we are completely caught up, at least. But yeah, seems like also that the newest season, part 2 of the final season, that's not gonna be the final part in reality. Actually, like there's gonna be something after that.
Perhaps somebody talked about a movie, but that's because there's so much stuff that they still need to cover. So even like one season might not be enough to cover everything.
Yeah, or maybe there's gonna be a part 3 of the final season. So they're gonna
well, time's gonna tell what's gonna happen. So.
Yeah. It's I'm just saying that even though we're not caught up yet, it seems like the story is not ending with the season that's airing right now. So we might still be able to catch up at some point and then watch it in real time, like the very last part, or if it is a movie.
We'll see what time brings. Right.
It's in the future. But do you have anything else you want to add to this one? Teeny tiny thing, yeah.
Hanji got promoted!
Oh, fuck yeah. That was nice to see. Hanji is doing a lot of work at the moment and really leading the charge, and has always been, just like Erwin, very inquisitive and curious of nature. Want to know
the truth.
Yes. So it's a good person to put in charge while Erwin is gone. I don't hope I hope nothing's gonna happen to him, at least. But for now, being arrested and being put away, and then we'll see what happens. But that's gonna do it for this reaction and review of Attack on Titan Season 3, Episode 3. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.
Bye.